Hello, friends. This is Dorie Clark, and we're here with Newsweek's weekly interview show, Better. Every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, we talk with authors, thinkers, and business leaders about how to make your life better. And today's guest is Jenny Blake. Jenny is the author of the brand new book out this very week, Free Time. And yes, we got matching copies. That's exactly right. It's Free Time. Lose the busy work. Love your business. I think we can all relate to that. Jenny Blake, welcome.
Thank you so much, DC. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And for all of you who are tuning in live, please feel free to type into the chat box and let us know who you are and where you are dialing in from. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what's on your mind and get your questions for Jenny Blake. Again, she's the author of Free Time, Lose the Busy Work, Love Your Business. So, Jenny, the first question that I have for you, obviously, this sounds like an excellent value proposition. I think most of us feel like we're kind of drowning in busy work, that we're almost never able to get to the real stuff, the stuff that we want to be doing with our business. For years, this has been a dream that we've sought. Starting in sharp relief 15 years ago with a 4-hour work week. Everybody says, "Yeah, bring it. I want less busy work." So if you were to give the kind of high level view for someone who, let's say they're working 40 hours a week and they'd like to work 20, or if they're working 60 and they're like, you know what, I'd be super happy with 52. What do you tell people about this, and how do we even begin the process?
Thanks, Dory. Well, first of all, what you're saying, just recognizing that there's room for improvement is step one. Two, I kind of live and work by the mantra, the agile development mantra of each time you repeat a task, take one step toward automating it. That's a principle or philosophy of a way to work where we take small steps today that can free our time far into the future. So I find that instead of just working in the weeds and in the busy work, if we can step back a little bit and design smarter systems in really simple, practical ways, those systems start to do the hard work for us. And it frees everybody, not just the manager of a team, but everyone on the team from doing that boring, busy work or bureaucratic stuff that, like you said, kind of drags us down. So free time is not just an outcome, it's also a verb. How do we continually free our time so that we can do even more of our best work?
That's fantastic. I love it. Jenny Blake, thank you. She's the author of the book Free Time. And we want to say hi to some of our great guests tuning in. We've got Ellie, formerly of Singapore, now of London. We've got Joy from Calgary, Alberta. Juliana's here. Donald is here from Colorado. Cheryl, our regular guest from Minneapolis, St. Paul. Raj is here. We have Janice from Denver. Tanya's tuning in from Sacramento. We've got Danette from Hotlanta. I like the branding, Danette. That's excellent. We've got, Janice is here as well from Calgary. You and Joy should hang out. That's fantastic. Juliana's here. Marion also from Hotlanta. Everybody. We need to make some shidduchs here. Everybody needs to become friends. Our better viewers. So welcome to all of you who are joining us. We have Jenny Blake, author of the book Free Time, and Jenny. So I love what you're saying. Essentially, it sounds like systems are at the key of this. Now, I want to hear more about that. But first, I really want to get a sense and just share with the audience. I know you, we are good friends. You are one of the most organized, systematic people and systematic thinkers that I know. And you have great processes in place for everything. I mean, you gained fame in the author community for creating this massive Excel spreadsheet that was, all the things that you need to do for book launches. So there are a lot of people out there, myself included, who are not naturally that good at systems. It's just, it's kind of a heavy lift. So obviously, once you have a system in place, that's great. But for somebody who might think of themselves as like, oh, I don't really know how to systematize. Maybe I'm a creative type. I can't really do this. What would you say to them, and how can we get them on the train to being able to create more free time?
You're not alone. A lot of people feel allergic to the word systems, or they think about new software and get overwhelmed. They don't want to just keep chasing shiny objects or Frankenstringing new apps and systems together. And we all know that we've sometimes spent a lot of time, effort, energy, and money to implement new software or systems only to have them fall by the wayside. So you see this a lot in project management or time management apps and that sort of world. In the book, I share the primary diagnostic and the place that I would start if you don't naturally think of yourself as a systems thinker is just where are you in friction and where are you in flow? Friction is a sense that something in your life or your work is dragging you down, it's draining you, you're procrastinating, you dread tackling whatever that is. Flow is a state of what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi describes as near ecstatic bliss, where you're working, you're in the zone, you're on fire, time is passing, and you don't even realize the clock. So, if we start by looking for one friction area, the area that you're in the most pain, the area that if you were to solve it would make your life and work so much smoother, you're going to be more motivated to find a solution. And the free time framework is three parts: align, design, assign. So, first, I find before even thinking about the word systems or software or designing anything, we need to look at, is this area still aligned? Should you be doing it at all? And if so, often the reason we haven't dropped something altogether is we do care. Something about it does hit on our biggest values. So we just can shift a little bit of, how do I approach this area from a place of letting it be easy, letting it be fun? My friend Leanne asks the question, how can I fall in love with this again? And only once we were aligned conceptually, spiritually, energetically, then we move into intentionally designing, how could I make this easier on myself? You don't have to know the answer yet. You don't have to be a systems thinker in order to ask that question of, how can I make this easier? How can I fall in love with this again? And even if you don't have answers right away, that inquiry alone will start to percolate ideas as you move throughout the week.
That's really powerful. Thank you. We're here with Jenny Blake. Jenny's the author of Free Time. It's a new book just out this week, Lose the Busy Work, Love Your Business. If you're enjoying this conversation, you can learn more about Jenny. You can check out her book and learn more at itsfreetime.com. And especially if you're having fun here, click the like button and click the share button so that your friends and colleagues can benefit from the conversation as well. We also want to say hi to new folks tuning in. Scott's here from Baltimore, Dean from Kelso, Washington, Sushma is here, Leandro Benam from Iran, Fatima is here. We've got Jason joining us. Mohammed is here. Al is from Angola. We have, so Jason's from New Jersey. Mallory's here from Charlotte. Elen is here from New York City. And Liz from Reston, Virginia. We have, and Anne, your friend Anne is here from New York City. So we've got so many great folks who are joining us. We're glad to have all of you. We're taking your questions for Jenny Blake, author of Free Time. Now, Jenny, something that I'm curious about and would love for the audience to hear more about, in terms of your own work, I'd love to hear more about the inspiration for Free Time, because I know that you personally have struggled with some of these issues about, how to free up your time. There have been times in your business that essentially, I say in air quotes, you're a little bit of a victim of your success in terms of being so busy, and you took really specific steps in order to extricate yourself. Can you talk a little bit about how this played out in your own life, and then how and why you decided to systematize it in a book?
Well, I started to get curious about these cycles of burnout. And I know I'm not alone in this because we're seeing more and more of this, especially in really intense working environments, in the tumultuous times we've all been going through these last few years. I worked at a startup as the first employee, then moved over to Google for 5.5 years, and now I've been self employed for over a decade. And I just started to get really curious. Why was I going through these cycles of burnout, crash, recover, burnout, crash, recover in every iteration of my career? So it wasn't just any one company that was to blame or even myself. It was this inner time blueprint. It was a way of working that I inherited growing up from my family, from society, from my educations, the companies that I had worked in. When I became a business owner, that's when I decided I just can't work like this. When you're self employed and you run a delightfully tiny team, the owner's health is vital to the success of the business. And so I just knew that it wouldn't be a smart business decision even to let myself keep running myself into the ground. And that's where I started to become really intentional. That time blueprint I talked about, I would wonder, when I worked at Google, I had wall to wall meetings Monday through Friday all day. I was always running around and running from one thing to another. But it's interesting, even being self-employed, I would say that I wanted free time, and yet I would look at my calendar for the next few weeks and it was crammed again. So what the heck was going on? And I got really clear that I had this default scheduling mode, or the saying, don't write a check that your body can't cash. It's as if my mind, in saying yes to too many things, was writing a check that my body couldn't cash over and over. Or when I would show up that day, I would notice I actually don't want to be doing some of these things at all. So I started to get really clear about designing my time. In fact, I got so not rigid, but clear with my boundaries, my time boundaries, that I blocked off Mondays and Fridays for no meetings. I wouldn't schedule meetings before 11 a.m., usually, sometimes 10 a.m., and after 3 p.m., when, as one of my clients says, I don't even know my own name. I'm no good to anybody after 3 p.m. Then I took a page out of my French corporate clients' books and I said, if they're taking the month of August off, then why aren't I? And so I blocked off all of August on an annual recurring basis. So I don't even have to decide to do this again every year. It's already blocked off. Same thing with mid December to mid January. Just like I described looking at friction areas, I noticed how overwhelmed I got around the holidays. And not just those last 2 weeks of December, but I noticed the frenzy of activity that would start the first week of the new year when everyone else was back. And I just decided I need to protect this time a little better. So I block now a do not schedule recurring block mid December to mid January, and I put up an email autoresponder. And some people might think that that's overkill. What it does is gives me space and spaciousness to decide in the moment what I want to commit to. What often happens is not that I'm just delinquent on Mondays and Fridays. It's actually when I get some of my most important strategic work done. So, a lot of this new book, Free Time, got written on unscheduled Mondays when I would show up at my desk. And the thing that I was the most excited to work on, I actually had a big block of open space. And that's what I find for anyone who's here with us, spending your precious time and energy with Dorie and I. I say in Pivot, I call this type of person high net growth. And in free time, I call them high net freedom, that we are not just optimizing for money, we're also optimizing for growing our personal growth, our time, our energy. And so that's the journey that you asked about, Dorie, is my path toward creating this sense of spaciousness. And that allows me to then do more of my best work when I do show up.
That's fantastic. We're here with Jenny Blake. She's the author of the new book, Free Time. You can learn more about it and Jenny at itsfreetime.com. And you can make sure that you never miss one of our weekly Thursday interview shows for Newsweek. Just go to dorieclark.com. You can sign up, get a free self-assessment, and you will get reminders about these weekly events that we do for better. So, Jenny, we also want to say hi to some of the fantastic folks who are tuning in. We've got new folks joining us. Julie's here from Boston, Lori from Rhode Island, Fatima's here from Brazil. We have Monique from Maryland. We have Lauren from Miami. We have Mosin. We have Bobby from Idaho. We have a LinkedIn user from the UK, Lillian from Paris. We've got Gina from Florida, Rose from Milburn, New Jersey, and so many more. We're glad to have all of you. So a follow-up question, Jenny, that I have is, people, I'm sure, are listening. They say, oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I would love to take August off. I would love to take the Christmas holidays off, but I could never do that. Even perhaps if they are an entrepreneur and theoretically set their own schedule, many people just feel like I could never do it. Certainly, it's that much harder, perhaps, if you are working for someone else. For people who just have that instinctive reaction, what are your thoughts, or how would you respond to that?
Yeah, it's not a 180-degree turn overnight, usually. It's the recognition that the way we're working isn't working. The factory system was not designed for any of us to thrive. It was designed for productivity and output and maximizing each person's output. But we're seeing now that that's just not sustainable. So even if you feel like you can't do everything I'm saying overnight, that's totally fine. I recommend looking at your best energy. When is your best energy in a given day? We all have different circadian rhythms, and start there. Block off 1 or 2 hours that by default, no one else can schedule over. Then, in the moment, of course, especially if you're working in a company, we all know you're going to have to make exceptions from time to time. But at least the default state isn't one of splintered time and attention. Researchers call it time confetti. That we know if we're not intentional about blocking off, especially when we are at our creative best, people are going to inadvertently steamroll right over it. Half an hour here, half an hour there. The worst when you have a no meetings day and then one meeting gets added. My dad said it's like mosquitoes coalescing on a bare arm. It's like they just your whole day starts to shape around this one new thing that's on the calendar. So I find that if even if you can't do all of it, start with one recurring block either every day at a certain time or every week and start there. You'll see. And again, this isn't about, let's say you work within a company. It's not about shirking your responsibilities. It's actually, you can communicate this to your manager or your team members if you're a leader. This is when I'm going to tackle the most important tasks of the week, the most strategic projects. So that time is actually quite vital to make sure that it's protected. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jenny. Oftentimes people think of it as, like slack time, but actually it may be really your most productive time. So a important question came through from Annette, who's joining us from Southern California. She wants to know, Jenny, how do you separate the busy work from the stuff that needs to be done, and we don't like to do it, but it's necessary? How do you think about that? I mean, for me, it's okay. I really have to do this invoice or whatever. But how do we parse that in an intelligent way?
Well, it's perfect that you ask this. We're right around tax time at the time of this recording. And it turns out there's a word for fear of taxes and government, phorosophobia. That's busy work that I don't know if anybody wants to do. Maybe the accountants who get paid to do it. But I think it starts with looking at what is the biggest drain on your time, energy, and attention. Because there's some busy work, like what Dory described, invoicing. Yeah, it's kind of a pain, but it's also pretty quick. And I consider that happy money. When I send an invoice to a client, I feel happy. I'm grateful. I feel like, yes, it's kind of tiny, but it's helping pay the bills. It's putting a roof over my head, as opposed to some of the minutia that is really truly draining, right? I hate to do like waiting on customer service calls. So I would start to parse out. And in fact, I created a delegation observation tracker. You can do this with a simple pen and paper. For 2 weeks, just write down everything that you would move off your plate if you could. And the reason I say 2 weeks is that if I asked you right now in this moment, what do you define as busy work? A few things might come to mind, but certainly not all of it. But as you move through a typical day and an average week, you start to realize, oh, yeah, there's so many things on my get this off my plate wish list. So keeping that temperature check in mind. When are you drained? What are you dreading? What do you procrastinate on? What are you just also not very good at? There are certain things that will take you or me 10 times longer than somebody else who actually enjoys it. So start by observing, and then you can pick the one or two things in your busy work pile that would make the biggest difference to actually solve for. And that's why the third stage of the free time framework is assign. This is intentional because I know that some of us hesitate to let go of things. We secretly like the control, or, oh, if I want this done, I need to do it myself. Or if I want it done well, I got to do it myself. This is a stretch, but how much can you assign to other people? And again, this is not just about pushing terrible work down on everyone else. Some people are genuinely excited to do the work that drains you, and they are happy for those opportunities. In a lot of cases, I saw in one of the comments, you can automate and eliminate a lot of the busy work. So when I've had conversations with my team members, I tell them, if part of the work drains you, tell me. I never take it personally. If your work is draining you, I don't think you're going to be doing a very good job. So together we can solve for that and say, is there a way we can automate some of this? Do we need to be doing it at all? With the pace of tech changes and innovation, I find often software solutions exist, let's say today that didn't even exist 6 months ago. So there's always new opportunities to problem solve around that busy work that nobody wants to do.
Really important point. Thank you. We're here with Jenny Blake. Jenny is the author of the new book, Free Time: Lose the Busy Work and Love Your Business. We have wonderful folks tuning in from around the world. If you're just joining us, let us know where you're calling in from. Paula is here from Bilbao in Basque Country, Spain. We've got Nathaniel, a regular who's here from Austin. We've got Zalima from Mexico. We're really glad to have all of you joining us. And we have a question that came in. It's I think a good one from Cheryl. She wants to know, Jenny, how do you help set expectations for a well-intentioned friend or family member who just keeps horning in on your time? You try to protect your time, they won't let you. What can we do in a loving way that helps set those boundaries?
Well, if you happen to live with said family member, you probably can't see, but at the very top of that bookshelf, I have these foam door hangers from Amazon. They're $10 for a colorful pack of 6 or 7. And I actually write on the red one, text only, do not enter. And then on the yellow one, it's knock first. I'm working, but come on in. There's a green one that says, come on in. I'm available for interruptions. So that's been a very simple analog solution that I do within my house. I also find I am a big fan, and I've done a couple episodes of this on the Free Time podcast. Staycations and workcations. Get out of the house. Sometimes, we love our family and our furry friends and everyone, but it can get so overwhelming. So I do live in New York City, but I have been known to go book a hotel in the city for 3 days just so I can have a little personal retreat R&R because I'm very introverted actually. So being alone is how I recharge. And sometimes I just need extra charging time. I know that's not always available to everybody. For small business owners, sometimes I suggest, well, you could ask, how can I earn this staycation? What ideas would I need to work on, or what would I need to create or launch in order to kind of justify that added expense? WeWork now offers $29 a day for drop in. So I do find that every now and then when you just feel yourself getting overwhelmed, my signal is I get resentful. I go, why is everybody texting me right now? And it's like, has nothing to do with each person. It's just a signal that I'm overwhelmed and maybe need to get out of the house, change my environment, and also not feel guilty about putting up do not disturb so the notifications don't come in at all. So when I'm really in a deep focused place, I just put do not disturb on my computer, on my phone, and there's just almost never anything so urgent that it can't wait 4 hours, 5 hours. And of course, if you have kids or something where you really need to be notified, there are ways to make exceptions for that in your devices.
Really good point. Jenny Blake is the author of the new book Free Time. You can learn more and check it out. Buy your copy at itsfreetime.com. It just came out this week. We want to say hi to new folks tuning in. Elizabeth's here from Tennessee. Vani is here from the south of France. And Jenny, we have a lot of buzz in the channels where people are curious about how you do things. They want to learn more about your process. I think a lot of people can relate to our friend Lori. She says, how do you escape email hell? I can relate to this. I literally just this past weekend wrote an article that came out about email and inboxes and how much we are suffering because of them. How do you handle email personally? And what is your advice for people that just feel overwhelmed by the 50, 100, 200 messages that inundate them every day?
This is a collective issue. So it's not just you. And it took me a long time to realize that. For over 10 years now, 15 years, my email inbox is my number one source of stress and micro guilt. And I say micro guilt because it's just those tiny moments of, oh, shoot, I haven't gotten back to this person or this one. One of my trade-offs, the reason that I work 20 to 25 hours a week is I've made a trade-off that I'm not going to be the world's fastest email responder. And I've just decided I could work double the time that I do in a given week, but I know that I would miss time with my family and time to exercise, time to read, time to recharge. So, one, I think we need to give ourselves permission to lengthen the response time. Just because every new social media platform, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, whatever ones you're on, Instagram, every time a new platform is created, we get a new inbox. Who agreed to this? And then text messaging, it has this built-in expectation that you're going to respond instantaneously. And what I find is the total of that is just Sisyphean. So Sisyphus is the Greek god punished to roll the boulder up a hill only to have it roll back down for all of eternity. The strategy that I recommend, just like the delegation observation tracker, is instead of just working in your email, which is never ending, work on the process of email. So here's what I mean by that. I liken it to the game The Floor is Lava that many of us play as kids. The floor is lava. If you get on the floor, you're out. The floor is lava. You have to jump from one piece of furniture to the next. So when you're working in email is a misnomer because the word email represents dozens of types of requests, projects, categories, tasks, etc. In the floor is lava game of email, build the furniture, build the process of how you respond to certain types of messages. And so what I do now is when I sit down at my inbox, I actually have something open and I have a template for this that I can share with all of you in the free time toolkit. It's free. where you actually note all the categories and you start to problem solve for the categories and even delegate. The last thing I'll say, some of you may be at a point where you want to hire a virtual assistant or somebody to help in your email. And what I would recommend if you do that, what I just said to the person I just hired after finally caving and saying I really need more help than what I can do. I said to her, I want us to imagine that 3 months from now, you are going to move out of this role and we're going to bring someone new in, but neither one of us can even have a single phone call with that person. So I need our guide to how to answer Jenny's email to be so comprehensive, so ironclad, so detailed that we could hand it off in 3 months without a single conversation and that next person would know exactly what to do. That way, I'm not onboarding and training somebody only to have them leave with all the systems and process only in their mind and then start all over again.
I love it. Such an important caveat. We're here with Jenny Blake, author of the book Free Time. It is new, and you can learn more about it and Jenny at itsfreetime.com. I also want to make sure that we give a special birthday shout out to Todd Churches, who's a former guest on Better. He says, hi, thanks for tuning in on your birthday, Todd. If you're interested in checking out my interview with Todd, you can go to the YouTube channel for Newsweek or my personal one, Dorie Clark, and just search for Dorie Clark and Todd Churches, and you can check out our conversation about his great book, Visual Leadership. So, Jenny, there's so many great comments coming in. People are so excited about all of the ideas that you're sharing. But one that I think was especially great is Maureen really wants to double click on your idea about taking August off and not scheduling in August. She says, can you talk a little bit more about the systems and the procedures? How do you set it up? If we're planning now, if we're starting in March to try to plot for this, what do we need to do today to make sure that we can successfully take the month of August off as well?
Well, yay, Maureen. Woohoo. I love this. I'm sensing 2022 is going to be your year because we're right in the perfect window to plan for it. Step one, block it off on your calendar from now. Step two, the question you asked is a great inquiry to hold for yourself over the next month or two. What do I need to do to go into August guilt free and footloose and fancy free? So just ask yourself, because for each of us, the answer is going to be different. For starters, I also want to say what I noticed having done this twice now, 2 years in a row. Everyone else is taking August off. No, maybe not the entire month, but so many people are out. The work does slow down significantly. So I think you could have a little confidence going in, knowing that a lot of other people are also relieved not to be in such an intense work mode in that month of August. And many people are traveling with kids and taking their own time off. So, what I would ask is, are there any exceptions? Would anything in your business break if you were to take this summer break? Whatever those are, you can solve for them. So, if you cannot do the month of August with no meetings at all, could you consolidate them to 2 days within the month or 1 day a week? I mean, now we're getting into where you're kind of scheduling back over it again. But I would just ask, what would break and how can I solve it? And I would also ask, could these items that I think are so time sensitive, my friend Julie calls it true urgency versus false urgency. Sometimes we have a false sense of urgency or pressure. Does this really need to happen in August? Or could it wait till September? Would anything go awry if this person, client, colleague needed to wait a little bit of extra time? And so as you do think about what would you require from your team, from yourself, from an autoresponder, from your calendar, at least you can start to solve for those things. And I think you'll find actually surprisingly that 90% of your work could wait till September or be handled in July to no detrimental effect.
Love those tips. This is great. We're here with Jenny Blake. We're getting close to wrapping up, but we're not wrapping up yet. She's the author of Free Time. And if you want to learn more about the book and download Jenny's fantastic and helpful toolkit, just go to itsfreetime.com/toolkit and you can get the full 411. Jenny, one of the last questions that I want to make sure that we tackle, this is a speed round question, but inquiring minds want to know. Liz is curious if you can talk about if there's any apps that you like. I know you are very up on this. This is one of your hobbies, is collecting useful apps. Can you name one or two or three that you think other people who are tuning in might enjoy?
Only my favorite question ever. Liz, I thought you would never ask. I love this question. And in fact, if you want to know all 50 software services that I subscribe to run my business, when you join the Time Well Spent newsletter, same website Dory put, you'll get a list of all the software services I subscribe to and at what investment. And that list is one I use because we have so many subscriptions now, so that you can see how I set up my tracker. I am loving Notion. I run my entire business operations on Notion, and it's really low investment, but it can do everything. It is how I have created my externalized business mind. Nothing lives in my head or team members. Everything is in Notion. So that has a bit of a learning curve, like I said. But when you check out the free time toolkit, this URL that Dory put, you'll see Notion in action, notion.so. I love Zapier or Zapier, Zapier. That helps me automate a ton of repetitive tasks in my business. And even if you're not a business owner, you would be shocked at how much it can automate for you. It takes a little playing around with. But when people fill out a form, it can also add them to a calendar and invite. It could add a row to a Google Sheet. There's so much that's possible. I also love Text Expander. That's where I save all my keyboard shortcuts so that I have to type just one word and maybe an entire 3-paragraph email populates. That's another really helpful one. And you know me, Dory, I could go on for ages with all of this, but I'll say those are 3 of my top favorites.
Well, these are such good ones. Thank you so much. We have been here with Jenny Blake. She's the author of the new book. You can get it now. Free Time, Lose the Busy Work, Love Your Business. You can learn more about the book, pick up a copy, and get a free toolkit at itsfreetime.com/toolkit. Thank you all for tuning in. And Jenny Blake, thank you for joining us during your launch week.
Thank you so much, Dory. It's just a delight to be here. I'm a big fan of these very interviews, so I'm honored to be a guest. And I really appreciate all of you being here and the fantastic questions as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.